Is going on, everybody, and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I'm your host, Josh Harris. Haven't been here in like 10 days. Haven't watched hockey in 10 days. Really haven't given a shit about anything in 10 days, but you have to start come back somewhere. So why not today? I'm going to be relying on data solely because I really haven't been watching hockey, but we have a 5-game slate here today. Missed all the big GPPs yesterday, but I don't even know what they were or how anyone did, but we got a 5-game slate here today. There's a couple teams on a back-to-back. There's a bunch of news, apparently, that I'm not completely caught up on yet, but joining me to break it down, Slim Cliffy, thank you for taking the captain's chair in my absence.
Yeah, obviously not a big deal. Other things more important than this show. There was the big barn burner last night, that 100K up top, 555 buy-in, taken down by B. Kreider, familiar name. If you play DFS for any kind of extended period, especially NHL or other sports, he's a familiar name. Had a 3-2-1 build, Colorado 2, Yurov and Tarasenko, and then an Adam Fantilli one-off. But he did pair him with Zach Werenski, but 3-point game from Yurov, 2-goal game from Tarasenko. That line did a lot of damage last night. So I guess congrats to B. Kreider. He doesn't really need it from us. But that took down the 100K last night. I only had one buy-in. I had Boston one, which, they did all right. I think Pasternak had 2 assists and a shot bonus. Geeky had a couple goals. I paired him with the Rangers. New York Rangers shut out against a Quinn Hughes-less Vancouver Canucks team. I don't know what to say about that. Kind of my own fault for relying on the New York Rangers, but last night was last night. Tonight is tonight. 5-game slate ahead of us. Dominic David says, got 1K in the barn burner last night. Thanks to Cliffy for the Colorado 2 tip. They had a pretty good night. Colorado put up 5 goals, kind of expected. But another night tonight. There is a lot of news to go through because, we'll get to the first game off the hop. The first game is Kings and Panthers. Looks like there's going to be some line changes for Los Angeles. Probably won't know until warm up. We'll get to that. St. Louis has, I guess they have, they're icing an NHL team tonight. Obviously the St. Louis Blues have quite a few injuries of their own. Jordan Kyrou is out. Dylan Holloway is out. Jimmy Snugarud is out. Nick Bjugstad is out. Alexei Toropchenko is out. Like, that's nearly half their forward roster gone, including 3 of their top 4 wingers. Tough scenes for St. Louis. So fair bit of news. We'll see if anything comes through while we're on the show. But nice little 5-gamer here, I think. Some nice matchups across the board. Even a lopsided matchup of New Jersey going into Vegas. I think there's interesting stuff on the Devil side. So it's not a bad little Wednesday slate for us.
Yeah, and I see I leave for a week, the site breaks. So bear with me with this data hub. Definitely taking me out of my comfort zone a little bit, but let's get into it here. Los Angeles Kings with a 2.8 total. Heading into Florida, the Panthers have a 3.2. Like Cliffy said, we don't really know the Kings lineup. What we have in top stacks right now is Kempe, Kopitar, Kuzmenko, Fiala, Moore, Turcotte, LaFerriere, Armia, Fogle. For Florida, we have Bennett, Verhaeghe, Marchand, Reinhart, Lundell, Luosterainen, and then Erod, Samoskevich, and Greer. I mean, generally speaking, going up against the Kings is not an easy task. They have a good top pair, Doughty, Mikey Anderson. Brian Clark's been playing a bigger role of late. that being said, like there is stuff that I do like on the Florida side, just because, I guess Quentin Byfield is a game time decision. He's one of the news type deals. Like if he's out though, like that second line, probably definitely not as good at either end of the ice. That would give me interest in Lundell, Reinhart, and Luosterainen at 14,900. They have a 7% top two, 8.9% projected ownership, a little bit of negative leverage, but 14,900, not too bad. That line has been pretty good in the 100-minute sample. So, 2.8 expected goals for, 2.7 actual. Get Reinhart on the top power play. They play decent minutes. They avoid the Mike Anderson pairing for the most part. So, if you want to go up to Bennett, Verhaeghe, Marchand at 17.6, they have, a 12% top two, 9.4% projected ownership, but they are fully correlated. But the Kings generally have a good penalty kill now that they've stopped taking penalties. So I probably go to Reinhart, Lundell, Luosterainen just to save the 2,700, but I'm completely fine with the fully correlated Florida line. On the Kings side, it's really hard to know what to do without a full lineup. I would imagine Kopitar and Kempe are together. That probably would be where I would go, just because like Bennett, Verhaeghe, Marchand pretty much hasn't been great defensively this season. Not that Kopitar has had a great offensive season, a great DFS season, but if it is Kempe, Kopitar, Kuzmenko, they are fully correlated, I believe. No, I don't know if Kuzmenko's on the top power play, but Florida does take a boatload of penalties, so getting exposure to Kempe and Kopitar for fairly cheap makes some sense, but I prefer the Florida side.
Yeah, until we know what the Kings lineup looks like it's really hard to say what to do. If Byfield comes back, because Phil Deneau, it looks like he's still going to be out. I assume if Byfield comes back, they're just going to leave Kopitar, Kuzmenko, and Kempe together, put Byfield and Fiala back together. They were playing with Joel Armia of late. That line was actually creating pretty well. They just weren't finishing. What a big surprise for a Los Angeles Kings line. That Byfield, Fiala, Armia line, 63 shot attempts, 3.3 expected goals per 60, but only 1.6 actual goals per 60 at 5-on-5, shooting under 5%. Like the league average is like a little over 11%, I think, for on ice shooting for forwards. So they're less than half that, even if they're just 10%, which is still below average, like they're scoring at a really good clip. So I wouldn't mind that line. The thing is going into Florida, Lundell's line usually takes the shutdown matchups. They've been really good defensively, 49 shot attempts, 1.7 expected goals against per 60. So, they're not giving anything up at 5-on-5, and teams have been treating Byfield and Fiala as the top line when they've been together on the road. So I think I kind of agree with you here that if it is Kempe, Kopitar, Kuzmenko, that would be the line that I would go to. 13,700, 5.6% top two stacks, 6.2% ownership shares. So top two basically right in line with their ownership. You get the easier matchup going up against the Bennett line, avoiding the top pair, the Gustav Forsling pair from Florida. I imagine they're still going to be perfectly correlated even with Byfield back, because Byfield wasn't playing the top power play or hadn't really been playing much of it over the last month. So, this might be a perfectly correlated top line that's going to get good 5-on-5 matchups. I think that's my favorite line from the Kings side. In general, I don't have a lot of interest in Los Angeles. This just isn't a team that scores very much. Danil Tarasov, starting for Florida, he's been better than Bobrovsky this year. I don't mind the Kopitar, Kempe, Kuzmenko line as long as Byfield is in. I think they get easier 5-on-5 matchups, but I'm not super in on the Kings. I'm with you. I'm more in on the Florida side. The way I'm treating Florida in this game, because it is a tough matchup going up against Los Angeles, right? The Kings don't score, but the Kings don't allow goals either. Second fewest goals against. per minute in the league this season. Now, Anton Forsberg is starting, or likely starting, I guess, because Darcy Kemper's injured. Anton Forsberg's not been anywhere near the same goalie as Darcy Kemper. If you look at their goals against per game this season, it's the difference. It's like a 0.6 goals per game difference. It's like that Logan Thompson, Charlie Lindgren difference that we always talk about. Like, just imagine this is Charlie Lindgren starting for Los Angeles. So that's why, like, Florida's not my main target here, because I do think it is a bad offensive matchup for them, basically at all strengths, whether it's 5-on-5 or the power play. But they do get a good goaltending matchup with Forsberg starting. And the way I'm treating Florida is this: they're not playing single entry. They're not my main stack. A Florida stack is not the first line I put in my lineup today. They're the second lineup I put in, and what line I go with depends on what else I do, because there are 3 different price points, right? Top line, they're the Bennett line, 17,600, the Reinhardt line, 14,900, and then the third line is under 10K. So, if you're playing like, I guess, a Winnipeg power play or a Vegas power play stack, and you need some cheap guys like Florida 3, 69 shot attempts, 3.5 expected goals per 60 in their time together. They've been pretty good offensively. They don't get a ton of minutes. They'll play 13 at the low end, 17 at the high end, maybe for Rodriguez, including penalty kill time. But if you want a 2-man like Rodriguez and Samoskevich or something like that, put them in with your Winnipeg or your Vegas, I think that's fine. If you want to play the Reinhardt line because you are playing an 18K line elsewhere, you still want to get in a good defenseman or something, I think I'm fine with that. My favorite line is Florida 1, 17,600, 12.1% top 2 stack, 9.4% ownership, 4.1 expected goals per 60 in their ice time together, all on the top power play. They're my favorite Florida line. I do think Florida has 3 playable lines. I'd play any of those 3 Florida lines before I play anything from the Kings. But they're not the first line I put in my lineup. They're the complementary lineup to whatever else I decide to go with. That's how I'm treating the Panthers and Kings here tonight.
Utah Mammoth with a 2.9 total. Heading into Detroit, the Wings have a 3.1. Utah going Schmaltz, Keller, Peterka, Hayton, Genther, Krause. Detroit going Larkin, Raymond, Finney, DeBrincat, Kopp, John Leonard, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah. San Jose legend.
All right. The Detroit played last night, right?
Yeah. Gibson started last night, so I imagine it's Talbot tonight.
Yeah. There's a lot of ownership on Utah 1 here. Keller, Schmaltz, Peterka, 18,800, 22.6% top 2 stack, 19% projected ownership. I don't dislike them. They've been good. They're fully correlated, 2.9 expected goals for, 4.3 actual in 109 minutes. That top line, for Detroit has been all right at both ends of the ice. They're going to see a lot of that Seider-Evansson pairing. I think they're fine at 18,800 because Detroit's on a back-to-back. This line's fully correlated. They've been good. We'll have to see, when you get into your builds, whether you want to prioritize Utah 1 or not. I kind of like that second line, Krause, Hayton, Genther. And I know you don't get great power play correlation there. You get Genther on the top power play, Krause and Hayton on the second. In a small sample, they've been really good. They're going to avoid the Seider pairing. And once you get into the depth of Detroit, it's just a big mess. They're coming in right at their top 2 stack with 5.3% projected ownership. So, that's probably where I would go. On the Utah side, Utah 2 is a filler. I'm fine with Utah 1 at 18,800. It's just a lot of ownership for, a fine matchup, not a great one. So Utah 2 for me, fine with Utah 1. On the Detroit side, it is Vitek, Vanacek in net. There is 11% projected ownership on Detroit 1. Utah won while they've been pretty good defensively. They've been below average defensively. I think if I was spending up in this game, I'd go to Detroit 1 over Utah 1 for $1,200 less. 14.6% projected ownership, 14.6% top two, 11.3% projected ownership. They're going to see Sergachev, Dursey, and that's fine, but that Schmaltz line hasn't been great. Vitek Vanacek's been awful this season. So if I was spending up in this game, it would probably be for Detroit 1. I'm completely fine with Utah 1 because of what I said. They're fully correlated, etc. But I'd save the $1,200, get a decent 5-on-5 matchup here, and go about that. If you want to leave off Finney and add in DeBrincat, then you're looking at 21-8. And I guess at that point, I'd probably just go play Winnipeg. But, I'm fine with the DeBrincat 1 off for sure. But Detroit 1, then Utah 2, then Utah 1.
Yeah. You mentioned that Sider Evanson pairing. They're up to 390 minutes on the season, 1.9 expected goals against, 1.9 actual goals against per 60 of 5-on-5. Like, those are absolute meat grinder numbers for Utah 1. And the other problem is, I was looking at Utah's power play numbers without Logan Cooley on the top unit. I kid you not, they're worse than the Kings. Now, anybody that's been watching the NHL for the last 2 months knows how bad the Kings' top power play has been. Utah has been worse than that without Logan Cooley. 85 shot attempts, 5.7 expected goals for the top power play unit without Logan Cooley. That's horrific. Truly awful shot generation and shot quality numbers. And Detroit doesn't take very many penalties. Over the last 5 weeks, Detroit tied for the fourth fewest time shorthanded per game over the course of the season, fourth fewest time shorthanded per game. So if Utah only gets a couple power plays and the power play is terrible, and the top line, though perfectly correlated on that power play, is going up against the Sider Evanson pairing all game long, this is just bad matchups all around for Utah 1. So I am not super excited about playing the Utah top line here. I'm kind of with you. I'd probably rather go play the Detroit side. Like, in general, I'm more in on the Utah depth. I do think the Utah depth is very playable here. I mentioned how it's 1.9 expected goals against, 1.9 actual when Detroit's on the ice at 5-on-5 with Sider and the Sider Evanson pairing. With them off the ice, it's 3.1 expected goals against and 3 actual goals against. Those are terrible defensive numbers. This team cannot stop anything when that pairing is off the ice. And when that is good news for Utah 2 and Utah 3. Utah 2, you mentioned Genther, Krause, and Hayton. Pretty good in a small sample. 73 shot attempts, 2.8 expected goals. Krause has a bunch of 20 goal seasons to his name. Obviously had a down year last year, but Genther and Hayton pretty familiar with each other. I do think Utah 2 is playable. I think they're kind of an awkward spot at 13,500 though. Like, if you want to play them with like Winnipeg or something, I guess that's fine. Otherwise, like, if you play them with like a 17K line, there's no super expensive defenseman to play tonight. Like, the most expensive defenseman is Roman Josi against Carolina at 6,300. So it's like, who are you playing them with? So I think Utah 2 is fine. I just don't see the need to play them on, if you want to use Utah 1 plus Genther or something, I guess. For me, I'm kind of more interested in Utah 3, just because, if you are playing a Vegas power play or a Winnipeg power play, you do need a couple cheap guys like, Daniil Boot and Michael Carcone, 35 minutes together, 91 shot attempts per 60. That line plays like 12 to 14 minutes a game and is averaging like 7 shots a game over their last 6 games since Logan Cooley got hurt. Like, they're generating a pretty obscene amount of offense for the limited amount of time that they play, going against the third and fourth lines from Detroit, going against the third defense pairs, what have you. I honestly think like a cheap 2-man from Utah 3 is my favorite thing on that side. On the Detroit side, like, I think Detroit 1 is perfectly playable here. It's getting hard to not play Alex DeBrincat. even though, they don't have Patrick Kane. I talked yesterday how the Detroit power play isn't quite the same without Patrick Kane. Then I think Alex DeBrincat scored 2 power play goals last night. That guy is on a heater of all heaters. 19 goals, 3.3 shots per game over his last 25 games. That's a 60 plus goal pace. That is quite absurd. I don't think you have to play Winnipeg tonight. We'll talk about Winnipeg later. There are lots of cheap spots you can go to. I think you can game stack, Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, and then, a couple guys from Utah 3 or something like that. I think that's perfectly fine. I much prefer the Detroit side here. Detroit power play is not my favorite stack on the night, but they're very playable. They're certainly in my top 3. And I prefer the Detroit top guys over the Utah top guys, but I think Utah 3 for a cheap 2-man, if you're playing expensive Vegas or Winnipeg or whatever, is very playable here tonight.
Winnipeg Jets with a 3 total heading into St. Louis. The Blues have a 2.5. Winnipeg going Connor, Scheifele, Velarde, Lowry, Iafallo, Barron, Perfidi, Nemestikov, Niederreiter. Blues are going Thomas, as far as I know, Thomas, Buchnevich, Fabry, Dvorsky, Neighbors, Stenberg. Wait.
Yeah. They claimed Jonathan Berggren off waivers. Otto Stenberg looks like he's in. We don't know what the lineup is going to be. The guess from the beat, Thomas Buchnevich and Fabry's almost certainly going to be the top line. And then I think it was Luke Korak was saying Stenberg, Dvorsky, Neighbors second line, Shen, Suter, Berggren third line. But those are just kind of his guesses.
I don't even know who Otto Stenberg is, if I'm being completely honest.
I don't either.
I mean, I guess by default on the Blues side, it would be Thomas Buchnevich, Fabry. I mean, I don't really want to go up against Hellebuck on a 5-game slate with a $14,000 Blues line with Robbie Fabry on it. So I'm probably just out on the Blues. Yeah, if you want to one-off Buchnevich or one-off Neighbors or one-off Suter, I don't even know. I guess that's fine. But for the most part, I'm pretty much out on St. Louis. My interest on the Winnipeg side would honestly just be the top line or top power play. They are expensive, though, at $21,400, 21.2% top 2 stack, 11% projected ownership. This is the flow chart to ever flow chart. This St. Louis team's beaten to a pulp. They're bad. The problem is they just don't take a ton of penalties, but maybe with these new guys in the lineup, they take more. But the Jets need power plays to pay off their salary. So if they're only going to get 2 or 3, I'm not as comfortable as playing them at $21,400. I want to see them get 4 or 5 power plays, and the Blues just don't take a ton of penalties. So I think they're fine just because the Blues are basically rostering an AHL team. But using that salary for a line that is very power play dependent against a team that doesn't take a lot of penalties seems like a bit of a problem. Now they do have pretty heavy positive leverage. I think it's the highest on the night. It is. So in that sense, it's fine. But in my one lineup, I just, I think I would rather build elsewhere than rely on a line that needs, 2-3 power play goals to play off at the price. Now, maybe they get there 5-on-5, they score 1, they get a power play goal, and then they, merchant the empty net like they always do. And then, you're fine. But I'd rather rely on the path of least resistance, which is scoring power play goals. And this Blues team just doesn't take a ton of penalties. So, they're fine, but I'd probably look elsewhere tonight.
Yeah, I'm not. St. Louis 1, I'm out. I was looking at the St. Louis top line, their numbers without Jake Neighbors. So Buchnevich and Thomas without Jake Neighbors, 43 shot attempts, 1.8 expected goals for per 60. It's like I like that. Those are bad fourth line numbers. So out on St. Louis one, not in on the third line. I don't even think Berggren's in the player pool. The second line would be kind of interesting depending how they line up. If it's Dvorsky, Neighbors, and Stenberg, then no, I'm not in. But Dvorsky and Shen have actually played pretty well together this season. Dvorsky and Neighbors are on the top power play unit together, so that's something. Like, if anything, from the St. Louis side, assuming that Dvorsky and Neighbors are on the second line together, like that's a two-man for under 8K total, under 4K average each. So like it's a cheap enough two-man that you can play where like if they get one goal, you're probably fine. But it is Connor Hellebuck. This team's not really scored at all this season. Like, St. Louis is a bottom 5 scoring team in the league. It's like they're scoring less than Los Angeles. So like, I don't know, like a Dvorsky one-off, I guess, or something like that. That's about the extent of my interest in St. Louis. No interest in the Winnipeg depth. It's just what to do with the top line. Because you're right, they probably need 3 goals to pay off that $21,400 salary. It's not like it can't be done against the St. Louis goaltending. Joel Hofer did seem like he was kind of turning his season around. Then he gives up 4 goals to Nashville. So like, how much has he really turned it around? What worries me about Winnipeg is their top power play unit with Cole Perfetti. They're scoring well, but it's because the top power play with Cole Perfetti is shooting 35%. Like half that rate would be pretty high. Like they're just running blistering hot. They're not creating anything. 71 shot attempts per 60 with Perfetti on the top power play. Like that's pretty brutal. And you mentioned St. Louis doesn't take any penalties. Third fewest per game over the last 5 weeks. Second fewest per game over the course of the season. So like, I guess Winnipeg 1 is playable at 21,400. I would probably still rather play Larkin, Raymond, DeBrincat, even across 2 lines for roughly the same price from Detroit. So they're not my favorite line over 20K. Like I said, I'd rather play Detroit here. So honestly, not a ton of interest in this game. It is a 5.5 total. If anything, it's the Winnipeg top line. Like, absolutely. The question is just, what do you play with him? Do you add in Josh Morrissey? Like those types of things. I'm not really that worried about the matchup. I'm just worried about them actually scoring like 3 goals, hopefully 4 goals to pay off that hefty price. I do have some concerns about that because I'm with you. I do wonder if they actually get enough power plays to convert once, maybe even twice. So if anything, it's Winnipeg 1. In general, not a ton of interest in this one.
Carolina Hurricanes with a 3.4 total. Heading into Nashville, the Preds have a 2.7. Carolina going Jarvis, Aho, Svechnikov. Ehlers, Stankov, and Blake. Stahl, Martinook, Carrier. Nashville going O'Reilly, Forsberg, Evangelista, Stamkos, Svechkov, Wood, Bunting, Haula, Marchessault. So obviously Carolina has the highest total on the night. They have a lot of ownership. Top line, Jarvis, Aho, Svechnikov, 19,600, 17.2%. Top 2, 10.2% projected ownership. That's not bad, but the matchup really isn't great. Like that O'Reilly line has been good defensively in a 160-minute sample, 1.94 expected goals against per 60. Now, the goalies, haven't been great. Saros still has under a 9 save percentage on the season. That top line for Carolina still has been really good. I'll be honest, I haven't seen much Carolina hockey recently. Has their power play improved at all?
No, actually, I think it's gotten worse since they've done that Jordan Stahl thing. If not, it's been pretty much the same.
Yeah, so like there's a reason why the second line is getting a ton more ownership because they're $5,800 cheaper at $14,100. They have a 12.6% top 2 stack, 21.1% projected ownership. Now, it's like Cliffy said about Utah too. They're kind of priced in a weird spot. It's just like, who are you using them with? I guess you can fit them with Winnipeg 1. But, this line has been really, really good offensively. And once you get past the O'Reilly line, like that Svechkov, it doesn't really matter what the lines are in the bottom 6, even if they aren't confirmed. Like, there's nothing that is of concern. Everything just goes downhill once you get past O'Reilly. So, like, I do like Ehlers, Stankov, and Blake at 14-1. It's just whether you want to, play a line at 21.1% ownership. It has the worst leverage on the board here tonight. I do like them at the price. It's just, can you get different enough on this slate if they go off to still win? And the answer is probably yeah. I just, I think, I would probably, depending on if you wanted to do some super expensive power play stack or something, I think like a 2-mana Stahl Carrier or Stahl Martinook would be where I would go. So, like, I'm fine with all 3 lines. I just, 19,600 without a great 5-on-5 matchup and a power play that's struggling is not great for me. 14,100 for the second line. I like them the most, but they're coming in with a ton of ownership. Stahl, Martinook have, their offensive upside capped, but they're cheap enough where you can get a, really expensive power play stack in. So, I do like Carolina. It's just, there's issues with all 3 lines. On the Nashville side, that top line, it has been really good. It's just a really tough matchup going up into the Aho line. I guess, it would be like a Stamkos Wood 2-man for me. I don't love it, and I probably won't play it in single entry, but I guess you could one-off Bunting or one-off Marchessault as well. But, with Nashville 1 being their best line going up against, that Aho line, I'd probably just look for one-offs on the Nashville side.
Yeah, I think your point about the 5-on-5 matchup against O'Reilly and Evangelista is important here because, it's a 5-game slate. There are only so many places that you can go. And, like, if the Carolina top line was in a bad 5-on-5 matchup, but the power play was rolling, that would be one thing. If the power play is kind of doing what it is, but they're in a great 5-on-5 matchup, that would also be one thing. The fact that the power play has been terrible and this is a bad 5-on-5 matchup on top of it, that's a pretty big problem for me because, again, at their price, at a minimum, you need like a couple goals and a couple shot bonuses, if not 3 goals in a shot bonus or something like that. O'Reilly and Evangelista played over 250 minutes together. 2 expected goals against, 2.2 actual goals against. It's not like a complete meat grinder like Evanson Cider, but it's not that far off. And again, Carolina power play just flat out bad, like between like 5 and 6 goals per 60 for the top unit. The league average for a top unit's like 8.8. So, you know what I mean? They're like 35% worse than a league average top power play unit. That's a problem. Saying all that, Nashville does take a lot of penalties. That's the one thing here. Like 10th most time shorthanded per game on the season, 2nd most over the last 5 weeks. So maybe Carolina can get like 4, maybe 5 power plays and eke out a power play goal. And then they get one at even strength and then an empty net and then your night's made. Like, I do think Carolina 1 is playable. Single entry, like, again, I think I'd probably rather go to Detroit with the Brinkat on the top unit. We'll get to Vegas in a second. Like, I do think there are other spots you can go. I'm more interested in Carolina 2nd and 3rd lines. I think Carolina 2 is playable. Like, I get they do have a lot of ownership at 21%. 14,100 is an awkward spot. if you're playing like Florida 2 or New Jersey 1 or Utah, like you can pair them with those lines. 74 shot attempts, 2.7 expected goals per 60 over the last 10 games. With that weird thing they've been doing with the power play, they're perfectly correlated again on the second unit because Jordan Staal has been taking some time on the top unit. So, you do get all three guys on the second power play unit, which is something. And you mentioned, we talked about how good the top line has been defensively. Well, with them off the ice, expected goals against goes up 30% and goals against goes up 55%. Those second and third lines, the second and third pairs, they just cannot match up with anything. So even with all the ownership, I do think there are, some other low owned spots. Like we talked about the Bennett line, they're coming in with under 10% projected ownership. Like you can pair them with them, and I think it's perfectly fine. So I prefer Carolina 2 over Carolina 1 here. I think Carolina 3 is playable. Like you said, do like Staal, Martinook 2-man or something like that. Jordan Staal doesn't shoot the puck a ton, but 17 shots in his last 10 games. That's good for him. And he is getting a little bit of power play time either with the first or second unit. They get great depth matchups against Nashville. The Nashville depth, like I said, is terrible defensively. So I think it's the Carolina depth that I like best on their side. I'm not so in on the top line here. I'd rather play Winnipeg 1 than Carolina 1. Let's put it that way. So even if they are almost $2,000 more expensive. So that's where I am on Carolina. On the Nashville side, this is a brutal matchup. The Hurricanes had been giving up goals, but if you notice when they don't have Freddie Anderson in net, they're a lot better. Kochetkov only has a .904 save percentage, but his goals against average is .210 because the team doesn't give up shots. A 900 save percentage, but facing 22 or 23 shots a game just doesn't amount to a lot of goals against. I guess Nashville 1 is playable. Forsberg, O'Reilly, Evangelista, 15,100. I'm going to be honest, even at, 20% ownership, I'd rather play Carolina for $1,000 cheaper. Carolina second line. So I agree with you. I think the only thing on the Nashville side that I might have interest in is a Matt Wood, Steven Stamkos 2-man, 50 minutes together, 60 shot attempts, 3.9 expected goals per 60. Even if you take out Stamkos' 4-goal game, he still has 26 shots in his last 10 games, so he's shooting the puck a fair bit. Matt Wood, he's on a bad team, but he's looked good this year, including that hat trick earlier. I don't mind them as a 2-man. It's basically the only interest I have amongst the Nashville forwards. For me, I prefer the Carolina depth here, second and third lines in that order.
Before we get to the last game, we have a $10 super chat. Thank you, Raheem. Almost took down the $20 max last night. Second place last night, I think it says. Got 3 hundos. Oilers smack. Cliffy, that Ducks third line. Vetrano, Granlund helped me get there. Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Appreciate you guys. I wasn't here for that, but congratulations to you. I know you're in the chat a lot, so appreciate the super chat.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the support. Appreciate it. Finishing second, never nothing to sneeze at. Hopefully you get a nice bank here soon. We always appreciate the support, whether you're in chat, shouting us out, whatever it is, just really appreciate it. So good luck tonight. Hopefully you can have a bank here in relative short order.
New Jersey Devils with a 2.4 total. Heading to Vegas, the Golden Knights have a 3.1. Vegas didn't have a skate this morning. Eichel left practice yesterday. I think he was sick. We don't know about Shea Theodore. What we have in top stacks is Eichel, Stone, Barbashev, Hurdle, Dorofeyev, Saad, Marner, Bowman, Howden. Devils are going Bratt, Hischer, Mercer, Palat, Glass, Brown, Cotter, Lemico, Nason. Those are lines from practice yesterday, I believe. Brett Pesce could be back here tonight. This is interesting. I don't know if Eichel's going to play or not. if he does, that would probably be the line I would want to play. You could go to Hurdle, Dorofeyev, Saad. They've been good since, Saad got there last year. 13,100, 16.4% projected ownership. It's pretty high. I probably at that point just go play Carolina 2. That top line at 18,100 has 15% projected ownership, but like the Devils are a shell of themselves right now. Markstrom isn't their better goalie, at least this season, probably last season too. Jake Allen's their better goalie. Maybe Eichel goes out against top comp. Maybe they, don't, but I don't think it really matters. That Cody Glass line, small sample, not great. The Nico Hischier line, I'm sure would be fine, but, with bad goaltending, bad blue line behind him, I'd probably just go to Eichel, Stone, Barbashev, 18,100. You want to go to Hurdle, Dorofeyev, Saad. I guess that's fine. If you want to leave off Saad and add in Marner or something, make it like a power play stack, that's fine. I have a hard time power play stacking without Eichel or Stone, so I guess you could leave Barbashev off and add in one of the other power play guys if you wanted. But, it would be Vegas 1 for me. On the Devils side, let's see here. That top line fully correlated, 17,500, 14.7% top 2, 12.6% projected ownership. They haven't played together much this season. We'll have to see if Theodore's in or not. Carter Hart's probable here tonight. He hasn't been great since he came back. I don't mind that Devils top line at 17,500. They're fully correlated. I mean, Vegas doesn't take a ton of penalties, but, accounts for something. They play super heavy minutes. So, like, for all those lines in the 17, 18K range, like, there is merit to using them here just because of their role in the matchup. So, I don't mind the Devils top line. I guess you could go to the second line as a filler if you wanted to. They've been pretty awful. So, I guess like a Nason one-off is fine. It really would be the Devils top line or bust. And, depending on what the Vegas lineup looks like, I like Vegas 1, Vegas power play.
Yeah. It kind of sucks that we don't know what's going on with Eichel. Cause like, listen, a lot of guys have missed a lot of time this year from the flu. Like, there are guys who have missed like a week, 10 days. So it's not like, just being sick and then being back out on the ice the next day is a given. There are guys who missed multiple games. There are a lot of guys that have missed multiple games with the flu. So whatever illness Eichel has, like, we don't know what it is. We don't have any updates. And the problem is that Eichel line is 18,100. So if you put in the Eichel line, and, we get to warm-ups, we find out at warm-ups he's not playing. Well, the next 3 most expensive forwards for Vegas are Hurdle, Stone, and Marner. And, excuse me. Hurdle, Stone, and Marner are 16,700. So at best, you're leaving 1,400 on the table if you play the 3 most expensive players who aren't necessarily playing together at 5-on-5. That's kind of the problem with playing Eichel here. Maybe you do something where, like, you have the Eichel line and then you put in like Zach Whitecloud or something like that on defense. And then, if you have to swap off Eichel to Hurdle, then you can go from Whitecloud to Hannafin or something like that. So you're not leaving as much salary on the table, but you have to play a Vegas defenseman with them. If you wanted to, you could probably just straight swap over to the New Jersey top line. It kind of sucks that Stone got moved back onto that Eichel line last game, because Eichel's defensive numbers with and without Stone are literally night and day. Like, I'm talking his expected goals against nearly double when he doesn't have Stone on the wing. Like, bad defensively. And it would have made me want to play New Jersey 1, because Hischier and Brett have pretty good offensive numbers together this season. Even in their minutes without Timo Meier, 74 shot attempts, 4 expected goals per 60. Those are really good offensive numbers. I don't think Dawson Mercer is really going to help them. But at 17,500, like they're very playable. It just, if Eichel and Stone are together, it is a pretty bad 5-on-5 matchup. And like you said, Vegas doesn't take penalties. Over the course of the season, third fewest time shorthanded per game in the league, fifth fewest over the last 5 weeks. So like New Jersey's power play's taking a downturn without Jack Hughes, and they might not get a ton of opportunities on top of that. Like in a nutshell, I don't mind New Jersey one here. I kind of like them actually. But if Stone is on the top line and that's the shutdown matchup they're getting, it's a brutal 5-on-5 matchup, and the power play hasn't been very good. I honestly don't mind New Jersey one, but if we're looking in that price range, like 17,500 or whatever, like I'd rather go play Florida. I'd probably rather pay up a bit and go play Utah. So like, there's just really not a ton here that I've interest in at the top for New Jersey. Like if you want to do like a Cody, I guess like a Cody Glass, Andre Palat 2-man or something, I get into the depth of Vegas, like, okay. But for me, it's New Jersey one or bust. If I was 20 maxing, I would probably have a couple New Jersey top lines. Vegas isn't a tremendous defensive team. And like I said, if Eichel and Stone are broken up or something, it's not a bad matchup. My interest is on the Vegas side, but we can't really say what to do until we know if Eichel is playing, because the New Jersey penalty kill has been below average this year as a whole, and it's been getting worse as the season's going on. This is a pretty good power play matchup for Vegas if Eichel is in the lineup. If he's not, things kind of get tough because they could be without Eichel and Theodore, and then all of a sudden it's like Noah Hannafin on the top power play without Jack Eichel. It's like, what really is there? Like, in a nutshell, Eichel, Stone, and Barbashev is what I like best in this game. 50 minutes with Stone, 75 shot attempts per 60. Eichel playing over 21 minutes, Stone playing around 19 minutes. Both those guys on the top power play unit. If you don't mind paying up a bit, I think you can take out Barbashev and put in Marner. Marner's starting to collect his points again. He has 11 points in his last 10 games. If you want to put in Dorofeyev, I think that's fine. Instead of Barbashev, like I do like Vegas one here. The problem is we don't know if Eichel is playing, and he might have to leave a lot of salary on the table if he doesn't. We'll certainly send some updates in the Discord, but for me, it goes Vegas 1, then New Jersey 1, then probably Vegas 3, the Hurdle side, Dorofeyev line, 65 shot attempts per 60 in their time together. Dorofeyev, 25 shots in his last 10 games. We know how good he's been on the power play. This is a good power play match for Vegas, provided Eichel is healthy. So once we know more, we'll definitely mention in the Discord. I like the Vegas side in general, but if I was 20 maxing or higher here tonight, I would be giving some consideration to exposure to New Jersey one, because I do think they're not that bad of a line, and they're probably going to have to get a ton of ice time with all the injuries that they have.
Yep. Let's talk about defensemen here. There are only 3 6K and up: Yossi, Seider, Sergachev. Below them are Morrissey, Ghost, and Dougie. Like, I don't really see a need to spend up on defenseman here. I think if I was going to do it, the 3 I would do would be Seider, Sergachev, or Morrissey. Like, Yossi, I guess, is fine. I just don't feel like there's a real need there. You know, Seider in a Detroit power play stack, I think, is fine. Same with Sergachev. None of these guys really, jump off the page with the peripherals or anything like that. So probably be Seider 1, Sergachev 2, Morrissey 3. But I don't think there's a huge need to spend up here tonight.
Yeah, like I said earlier, Roman Yossi, the most expensive defenseman on the board here at 6,300. Not the highest projected defenseman, though. That is Moritz Seider. I have no problem playing Seider with your Detroit stacks. We've gone through a ton of third lines that I think are very playable to play with him here. I would go him first, and then Sergachev second for the 6K and above defenseman. But I'm only really interested in playing those guys if I'm playing, Detroit 1 or Utah 1 or something. I don't think I'm just going to one-off them. Mid-price range, like waiting for the shoe to drop with Jacob Slavin, because Jacob Slavin returned in his last game. I think he only played like 14 and a half minutes. And there was a quote from Rod Brindamore saying, like, they're basically getting a directive from the sports science people with the Carolina Hurricanes to keep Slavin's minutes down. Because obviously if he's 100%, he's playing 21 to 24 minutes depending on the game. Sean Walker's getting less. Shane Gostisbehere is getting less. But if Slavin's only playing 14, 15 minutes while they get him up to speed, Gostisbehere is going to have to keep playing 23, 24 minutes. Sean Walker is going to have to keep playing 23, 24 minutes. So, I don't mind Ghost, especially if you're putting him in with Carolina. I think Josh Morrissey's also perfectly fine. It's the guys just below that I kind of have more interest in. Seth Jones, certainly for Florida at home against Los Angeles. Luke Hughes, like you said, he has the best PR in the business, but he's also running the New Jersey top power play unit. And New Jersey's going through it with injuries of their own, right? Brett Pesce is back, but they're still missing Jonathan Kovacevic, and now Simon Nemec is missing. Luke Hughes might have to play a ton of minutes here tonight, even, especially if Pesce can't play 23 or 24 minutes right out of the gate. So I like Seth Jones. I like Luke Hughes. Justin Falk, I guess, because he puts up peripherals, but man, I hate saying that name. Under 4K, like Sean Walker, certainly. Until Slavin starts playing more minutes, Sean Walker's always going to be in play. Neil Pionk for Winnipeg. Simon Evanson playing alongside Moritz Seider, I think, is very playable. Braden McNabb for Vegas, especially if we get news that Shea Theodore is out. I like both McNabb and Hannafin here tonight. Under 3K, Gustav Forsling, provided he plays. He wasn't at practice, but I think they expect him to play. Forsling, Nick Blankenberg from Nashville. And I'll mention Slavin because eventually that guy's going to start playing 20 and 21 minutes a game, and he's only 2,800 right now. He might only play 15. Like I said, Rod Brindamore was told to keep his minutes low, so he might not be getting very many minutes right now. Eventually he will, and it'll be nice to have him at under 3K in your lineup when he does.
Let's talk about goalies. I mean, I don't really like any goalie, but I mean, there's a giant spotlight on Connor Hellebuck here tonight at 7,900. He's going to be super chalk for good reason. The Blues are just, the roster that they're throwing out there is just not great. I guess like Carter Hart isn't the worst play if you get Eichel news. If you're like into the late game there, like you'd have to be okay with starting Akira Schmid, or you'd have to be okay with starting Carter Hart without Eichel and just hope for the best. But I don't mind that. Obviously Hellebuck is the number one there. And if I was spending down, it'd probably be UC Saros, any goalie really against Carolina. Seeing volume is probably where I would end up. I know it didn't work out great the last time, but for 7,200 and a chance at the saves bonus, I'd go Saros.
Yeah. Number 1 and 2 by fantasy projection and fantasy points per $1,000 here tonight are Carter Hart and Connor Hellebuck. I think they're both extremely playable here. I don't really care about ownership. Like Carter Hart might come in at like 25 to 30% ownership, but like I don't care about goalie ownership on a short slate like this. So they're 1 and 2. I will shout out Danil Tarasov. Like this is a goalie. I'm not going to say I was high on him, but I thought getting out of Columbus might kind of show that he can actually be a serviceable goalie. And like I said, he's been better than Sergei Bobrovsky this year. And, you're facing a Los Angeles Kings team with the 5th lowest goal scoring rate in the league. If you don't want to play a super chalk Carter Hart, Danil Tarasov might come in at like half the ownership at the same price in their home matchup. So I don't mind Tarasov either. For the cheaper goalies, like UC Saros really stands out. If I'm not mistaken, he's projected for the most saves here tonight. Now, he's also projected for the most goals against. So, this could go very poorly, very quickly. But UC Saros, I think, would be my cheap goalie. If not Saros, I don't want to say Joel Hofer because I really don't want to play Joel Hofer here tonight. I think the goalie that I would go to besides Saros would be Markstrom. So I think if New Jersey wins that game, it's Markstrom having a good game, and New Jersey wins like 4-1 or something. I don't think it's going to be like a 7-5 game. But really, the one cheap goalie I have interest in is Saros. Other than that, it's the guys at the top in Hellebuck, Hart, and even Tarasov.
We will be back tomorrow. I think it's a 10-game slate tomorrow again. Yeah. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Well, why not go right back to Vegas? I'm going to the third line. I'm going Thomas Hertl.
I am going to go Sam Reinhart.
I like it. Slipping Sammy Reinhart.
So we will be back tomorrow. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you in the Discord.
Good luck tonight, everyone.